What is good, you guys? Welcome back. I hope that every single one of you had a beautiful Thanksgiving, that you spent it with people you loved, or I just want you to know that I actually am so thankful for every single one of you. I'm so glad we get to do this work together. And I want to get into the topic of today, which is 3D actions. Do they matter? You see the title. I relate to you guys so much when I see the comments of what do I do? How do I do it? All of that, because I know this all too well. And I want to say about 2 years ago, we really talked about this quite a bit on the channel. And I want to cover it again from this perspective because most people still feel like they're moving from the identity of the one who is not and constantly wondering why their life feels like this perpetual loop of the same thing every single day. So I want to talk about this first part, which is the doing, having, and being. And we talked about this a few years ago. So, this is the identity of I am not. And what happens is most people start their journey by doing something to get something so they can finally feel like they are someone. And that is the doing, having, being dynamic. And listen, it's not that this doesn't get movement or you don't get a few manifestations here and there. You do, but the movement is fragile because the identity really hasn't changed. And what I mean by that is we had a great conversation on our membership channel yesterday, and it's kind of like we were talking about working out. And so you kind of know when you decide every year your New Year's resolution is you're going to start working out, you're going to eat clean, you're going to do what you said you were going to do, right? And so you just start by doing it. And you're doing it for a while, but then you start to kind of fall off, right? And this is what I mean by the doing, having, and being, because the movement was fragile because the identity has not changed. You haven't made the shift within in consciousness. So you're acting from, if I take this action, if I do this, then it will give me the outcome. Or if the 3D responds or my body responds how I want, then I'll let myself feel like I am that healthy being. Instead of coming from the identity, when you made the decision to work out, it was because you were already healthy, or that version of yourself who was already who you wanted to be, right? So, which means people only allow themselves to be who they want to be if the form cooperates, if the pictures look exactly how they want, if it's the same exact way they see within that the person is going to come in, the SP or the large sum of money or the lottery or all of this. They wait to be who they want to be, that wealthy version, that person that's in love, if the outward forms cooperate. So it means that they're performing or calculating or forcing, hoping that the mirror reflects something they can believe in. It's not that they believe that they're the source. They're hoping that the forms look a certain way so they can believe that they are finally the source. But because the foundation is I am not, they always return to the baseline, and they can't hold that new reality because it was never an inner reality. You were never rooted within, resting there in consciousness, knowing who you were. So it was just a conditional performance here. So the outer world becomes their permission slip that if this looks a certain way, then I'll start getting moving, then I'll start being who I want to be. And when the mirror doesn't move or change, their identity collapses back into that distorted reality of lack, right? And I tell you this all the time. And I really mean this because I'm talking about personal experience here, that you can never outperform the identity that you're identifying with. It don't matter how much you get moving, how much you try to make happen. If you are coming from the one that I am not and perceiving everything as lacking until something outwardly changes, you may move a little bit, but at the same time, you're going to always revert back, right? So, the second part of this, and this is the identity of I am, which is the being, having, and the doing. This is really important because this is the real essence of reality creation or being. People ask all the time, well, how do I just be? This is really what this is, you guys. So, the being, having, doing dynamic, this is when you start from the internal shift, the remembrance of who you are before the story, before the form changes, or before the character, before the emotions, before the thoughts, all of that, right? And when you're doing this, you're not acting to get, you are acting from the wholeness, the fullness of I am, from the knowing that the desire is already here because being is the source of having. So your action is no longer outcome based. And this is the most important thing here. When we're talking about being the source, being I am, your actions will be no longer outcome based. Your action becomes expression of being. You associate it with the expression of being. So it's like I am already that version or that person, the identity. I've become aware of being the one who is healthy. So of course I work out. Of course I eat. Now that takes on a different tone, right? Because you're already in the end resting in consciousness that you've decided and remembered yourself to be that already. So the actions will naturally align without all of this resistance because you have identified the source, which is the identity, right? Or whatever the case may be, your SP money, it can relate to anything. So you're aware that the desire is already fulfilled in consciousness. So you are embodying the version of yourself who naturally and normally lives that way. And because you're not threatened by outcomes, right? You can't be moved because you're rooted. It's an internal shift. You can't be threatened by forms or outcomes. You're no longer avoiding anything, right? Before in the other section, we talked about how people will avoid, you know, doing or making the shift because the form is shaky, right? Their beliefs can be rocked. But because when you're resting and rooted in I am and you're just expressing, you're no longer threatened by outcomes or anything that you believe is happening in 3D, right? So you don't have to tiptoe around the circumstances. And I love that A Course in Miracles says this. It's the first line or two in the book. It says, nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists. If I am is the only reality, then only fulfillment is possible within I am. So everything else is a misidentification. The body that you believe that you had before that was not healthy, it is now a misidentification. You don't see, you see it now as a momentary lapse of forgetting yourself, but you're not avoiding it because you know that nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists. So if there's always fulfillment here, then that means my body has always been healthy and fulfilled. I just was misperceiving my wholeness, right? So allowing everything to be exactly as it is isn't something that you're bypassing or spiritually bypassing. No, it is really claiming your position as I am. So now you will no longer be fighting appearances and you're no longer trying to fix the mirror or the reflection. You're not negotiating your identity based on the external scene. This is the most important thing. So it's you're resting back in the truth that the story is already written in consciousness and you're simply living out that expression. So the last thing I really want to talk about, and I know that it seems all too easy, you guys, I know it does, but the truth is so simple. Living a fulfilled life now and not waiting for the 3D. And this is, I feel, the biggest thing that clicks for people when they just start living, they start moving and existing. They see that their desires unfold so easily. And I put a success story, I want to say about a week or two ago, about someone who won $3 million in a lottery scratch off, right? And when I told that story on our membership channel, it was really the fact that she was living just fulfilled. She was living her everyday life as if she was already fulfilled, and it just reflected that expression. It's not that she manifested a lottery win. The lottery win was mirroring the fulfillment that she was. And this is what most people miss, you guys. So you don't wait for your desire to arrive before you allow yourself this fullness of being. So I know I used to do this, and this is why I can tell you this. We put our life on pause. I used to sit on my hands and just wait and say, okay, well, I know I don't have to do anything to make anything happen. And this is true. But I was also negating living and experiencing my everyday life, right? I wasn't living in the world. I was waiting for something to happen. So I wasn't present with the fulfillment that already was, right? My friends, my family, my, just existing in everyday life, seeing that I did have abundance around me. So we put our life on pause and we're like, when my SP comes, then I'll open my heart. When my money comes, then I'll finally feel secure. And when I move, then I'll start living. But that is backwards. That's living from the effects, right? That means you're living as the character who thinks that they're separate. But remember that you are an idea within the mind of God. So, not a body trying to figure out how to become worthy. Again, the body and the mind is not a separate entity that needs to force its way into success. It is simply the instrument through which I am expresses itself. So your only job is to live, move, breathe, create, love, and act from the awareness that the end is already unfolding. So this is meaning go live your full life now. So that means let yourself enjoy your routines, your hobbies, your self care, your relationships, your creativity now, right? So again, you're not acting to make something happen. You're living because you know it already has. And I put a quote up on the community post last night and I said, put your inner eyes on the target and move from it. And this morning I was reading the comments and one of you put up a beautiful comment. Someone said, how? And someone replied to it and said, think about what you wish to achieve and think from the I am, that the you that has it. How would they think, move, act, be that every day without question? And I love that because it ties into what we talk about on this channel a lot. And we haven't covered it in a bit, but we're going to cover it here. Your inner senses are creative and your outer senses are reactive. Listen, when you go inwardly, it is a deliberate act of God, whether you imagine, touch, hear, taste, experience within. Listen, when you are experiencing your end in this way, and I mean experiencing it as if it's already been a present fact, that is, is becoming conscious of already being that within. When you're imagining your body already being the way that you want it to be, you already being in that relationship with your SP, it is I am becoming conscious of existing in that reality. So when you open your eyes, it's now not so much about making that reality become exactly like what you've experienced within, but it is to remember the being who is always fulfilled, to identify as that. And so now, whatever you do, no matter if it's resting, grabbing a coffee, hanging out with friends, working your job, you realize the entire experience is not about chasing a specific outcome. It's about embodying or moving as the state of the one who already is. So when you're living from fulfillment, that 3D becomes effortless because you're no longer trying to get something. You're simply expressing, right? So again, the story is already written and the desire that you are experiencing within is a memory. So now you're just witnessing the scenes play out through experience. And everything you now do is simply for the plot of being fulfilled. You're just doing it for the plot. Doing it. You're just doing it for the plot, allowing that awareness to move through you and allowing yourself to be moved because you know you're already fulfilled. So again, it's not for an outcome. It's just doing it to be the source, to be I am, to be one with fulfillment, right? So I have a beautiful success story about this, and this video is kind of long, so I will probably post that tomorrow. And yeah, you guys, I just really wanted to make a video about this because, again, I understand that most people, and even I've said that no, you do not have to do anything, and you don't. You don't have to do anything, but don't sit on your hands and just wait to live your life until something outward changes, because when you do that, you become stagnant, right? You become stagnant. You don't move. You can no longer see what's already present. So you're going to be in a state of constant waiting. But if you just live your life, allow yourself to be moved, knowing that you are already resting in consciousness, again, the body will move to where you are resting in consciousness. All right. And you don't have to know the how because you're never going to know. So you're just here to enjoy the ride for the plot. However it unfolds is for the plot. All right. So, again, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you guys if you are in the I Am Immersion experience. That is next Saturday. Well, the Saturday after next on the 13th. I'm so excited for that. And yeah, you guys, again, imagination is on your side, and I am too. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.